Bob Cooney from the Philadelphia Daily News joins us as we take a look at this team. Bob, the last 3 years, this is probably the best starting five that Brett Brown will throw out there in his tenure, right?
Yeah, I don't exactly remember, Mike, what he had the first year before they moved everybody. Like, he still had, like, a Spencer Hawes and an Evan Turner. I know people frown upon that, but at least those were, like, NBA players. But, yeah, moving forward, sure, this is the best that he's got so far. It's still not where they wanted it to be or anticipated it being. But, this is what he has. And it is exciting for fans. You do have Joel Embiid getting out there. You do have Darius Saric getting out there. And, those are two key pieces moving forward. And you see how Jahlil Okafor progresses, and you move on from there.
But, Bob,
I apologize for the noise, but I am in the bowels of the Wells Fargo Center, so you don't know what's going to happen.
So you're getting a first look at those new cheerleading outfits. All right, I see what you're doing down there. Bob Cooney from the Daily News. But this is a fluid situation. Like, does he even know who's starting? Do you know who's starting tonight? Has he announced that yet? Because yesterday when I talked to him, he still didn't really know. He said he was basically going to pair it up with who he thinks fits better with the big men.
Yeah, which makes you what it comes down to is defensively against Russell Westbrook. I don't think he trusts Sergio Rodriguez a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's T.J. McConnell out there starting tonight, because he wants to try to curtail Westbrook as much as he can to begin the game. Not that you're going to stop him, but the old contain him as much as you can. I believe that Brett thinks that McConnell is better to do that. So it wouldn't surprise me, although he hasn't said yet, that he starts McConnell out there, puts some pressure on Westbrook, maybe even gobble up some fouls if you have to. And then ultimately, I think Rodriguez will be the one getting the most minutes off the bench.
All right, I want to get your opinion on how he handles this Embiid thing, because the other day his quote to me was, it's going to be a fist fight every single night, in terms of how he figures out when and when not to use Joel Embiid. If he only has him for 20 minutes, I mean, can you really see if it's a late game, close game, and he's right around the 20 minutes that they just don't let him go over it? I mean, is that hard and fast? I mean, how does he handle this minute restriction?
That's why it's so hard for him, man. That's why it's a fist fight every night. You're going to have to look at the situation of the game, and his want is to go 4 or 5 minute clumps. Now, you would think, he's going to start the game, so you think you get a 5 there, and then probably start the second and third quarters. And then what do? Do you take a look at it? Or are you going to be able to stay in a game without Embiid in there? It's a fluid thing also, and it's going to be strange to see. And it's a shame that Brett, with all the stuff that he's putting up with, has to be a mathematician with minutes also. But that's where he is, and that's where he is right now. And he only had Okafor 8 to 12 minutes tonight, so it's not like he's going to be able to relieve Embiid with Okafor the whole time, because that doesn't add up either. So, yeah, it's going to be really, really tough to figure this all out at the beginning of the season for him.
Bob Cooney with us, talking Sixers basketball. And, Bob, a minute ago you talked about the point guards a little bit, Sergio or TJ. And then when you look at the Sixers injuries that they have, the big three, if you will, for injuries are Nerlens, Ben, but then Jared Bayless on there too. How much is him being out to start the season a factor in their early success? How much will they miss Jared Bayless within the first month of the season?
Yeah, more than people might think, because he's a capable shooter, and he's proven that in the league, and he's somebody that can spread a floor a little bit. So that's something that they're going to sorely miss. When you don't have that outside shooting, we've seen it for 3 straight years. Teams just pack in defenses against the Sixers and say, go ahead and try to beat us from the outside. And it doesn't happen because they just don't have the shooting. Bayless is an above-average shooter from long distance, and that's going to be missed. They were going to start him at the point guard. They still have him slotted being the point guard. So, yeah, that's a situation that is worth watching. And this wrist thing, it's just been very weird from the beginning. And, how long he's going to be out, I think right now is still anybody's guess.
And then another name that has come up is Dario Saric for tonight. I mean, that's a guy that first of all, he honored his word. He came over when he said he was going to come over, and he didn't. He probably left some money on the table. But what's your impressions of Dario Saric been so far, and what's he been? How much value can he add to this Sixers team?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a very solid pro. I don't know if that's going to be this year. I think you're going to see ups and downs mostly from him this year. It's awfully tough for somebody to come in the NBA and just have a rock-solid season right off the bat. So I think eventually he's going to be a very good pro. I'll tell you, I think the Philly fans are going to love him. He's a tough guy. He'll be behind a little bit in foot speed, but he'll make up with it in aggressiveness. He sees the floor really well. He passes unbelievably well for a big man. He just sees the game a little bit faster than most people do, and a little bit before most other players do. So he makes up for some sort of lack of talent, which is mostly speed and quickness. He makes up for it with his mind. So, like I said, I think he's going to be rock solid, and I think we're going to see a lot of flashes of that this year. But I think we're going to see some ups and downs with him, too.
Bob Cooney from the Daily News with us. Sixers open tonight. Listen to the game on 97.3. Bob, you were there for training camp preseason. What did you learn about this team?
Well, it was really hard, Mike. It was hard. You asked Brett Brown the same question, which I did yesterday. What do you know more about this team now than you did in training camp? And he paused we timed it 7 seconds. And he's like, I don't know. They just haven't had anybody together, to see them play together. They've been riddled with injuries. So it's really hard to say. I will say that Joel Embiid, and this might seem really obvious, but he has progressed further in 1 month of basketball than I ever imagined. For a guy that's taken 2.5 years off, that is coming to play with a totally different body than he played with when he was, 2.5 years ago at Kansas, it's amazed me how much he has progressed and how comfortable he looks on the floor for the limited time he's played.
Hey, what is the Nerlens Noel? What will be the last chapter of this? I mean, do you see him playing with the Sixers again? I mean, I know he's got the surgery. It doesn't appear that they're going to give him, the offer. What is the Nerlens Noel, story that we're seeing right now, kind of unfolding before our eyes?
Yeah, I don't. I wrote when he said his comments at the beginning of training camp, saying he thought it was silly that they were all still there and all that. I wrote that I thought it was bad timing by him. I just didn't think it was a smart idea to do it then for himself more than anything else. I mean, yeah, sure, it was bad timing because the city was so hyped, and this was before Ben Simmons was hurt. The city was so hyped for the start of the season, and here he comes saying, this isn't going to work, and you still have to deal one of us. So I thought it was bad timing, for the city, but especially for him. And now he's kind of put himself in a position. He hasn't been around the team much. He wasn't around the team much during the summer. He decided to work out on his own mostly. And it's just, it's leaving a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. So he's going to have to play. In order for the Sixers to get, equal value for him or close to equal value, and for Nerlens Noel to want to play in this league, he's going to have to get on the court and play and prove himself. And that's something he's going to have to do, and it's probably going to have to be here at some point.
Bob, do you think that Okafor and Embiid can coexist? Could they play together at the same time?
I'm interested to see that. I think they can. And I'll tell you what, if I'm the coach of this team, I get them out on the floor as much as I can. When you look at this team, true NBA players, true guys that, are going to last in this league for a while, those are pretty much your only two. And they both could be pretty studly. So why not take a look at them? What are you going to do this year? You're not making the playoffs this year. You're not trying to win 30 games this year. You'll try, but you're not going to get close to that. So why not? Why not throw these guys on the floor? And then from what I've seen, they both have a pretty high basketball IQ. I looked at tape over the summer of the Spurs from back when Brett Brown was there when they had Duncan and Robinson. I saw how those two existed offensively. It doesn't look all that hard. I think you really have to look at those two and say, okay, what do we put around them to make us better, make the team better offensively and defensively? And I really think you have to make those two work. I mean, those are two of your biggest assets. I think they're two of the most talented young big men in the league. I think you got to try to take a look at it.
So what do they have around them? What is the perimeter? Because these are all guys under the radar. We don't hear because Embiid took so much attention. Simmons' injury took so much attention. Guys like Gerald Henderson, Covington, who's been around. What is around these guys?
Not much right now. I mean, Gerald Henderson is a solid pro. He is a solid pro, and that is a huge step up from other players that the Sixers have had the last 3 years, and that can't be understated. He's going to do a lot of the little things, and he's going to get better as the season goes on. And having a solid pro on the team, that's a huge asset. the outside shooting of Covington and Stauskas and those guys, I mean, it's getting to the point that you wonder, have you seen enough? You know, is it time to move on? It gets to that point, and you have to wonder, how much upgrading do you have to do with those positions if those guys kind of stay status quo? So, that's why I say I think you really have to take a look at Okafor and Embiid, figure out if it does work together, and what you might need to make it work better together. But I've written this a million times and said it to you guys before. I'm a firm believer in Jahlil Okafor, even if you have Joel Embiid here. I think you really have to keep both of those guys.
And, Bob, I saw something the other day about Gerald Henderson being the elder statesman now that he's joined this team, and especially he went to Duke and with Elton Brand. Now he was the guy that was supposed to be the veteran leadership and stuff, that Gerald Henderson says, yeah, I'll take that role.
Yeah, and why not? He's a guy who's been in the league for 8 years. Just a solid pro, too. Like, you watch him at practice, and he, just quietly says to a guy, hey, no, not there, come over here. This, it's just little things. The way he handles himself in front of the media, the younger players take a look at that. The way he stays after practice and goes, through different things and different drills by himself. It's stuff like that. And then once he gets on the court and they see what a pro he is there, where defense is going to mean so much to him, and just the little things, setting a solid pick and holding it for that extra half second when he's not rolling to the ball. Like, those little things are stuff that the younger players can really pick up on, and things that Gerald Henderson is very, very good at.
Bob Cooney from the Philadelphia Daily News. Sixers open tonight. Bob, Brett Brown, 47 and 199.
Yeah, put that on your resume, Mike. How's
right?
that feel?
It's not nice. Not a good one. Is this a year where he needs to prove something? I mean, does he have to show Colangelo that he can coach at the NBA level? I mean, is there questions about that?
Wouldn't hurt. It's the obvious stuff. What has he had to deal with in his 3 years here? I know that he's had nothing close to NBA talent. And as much as he wants to try to do things, he just can't because he didn't have the talent to do it. There is some talent there now. Like I said, you have two guys who I think are going to be really solid big guys in the NBA. Well, all right, maybe in Colangelo's mind, it's incumbent on Brown to figure it out with those two. Figure something out. Let's make this team start looking like a true NBA competitive team, even though you're still missing some things. Some people say, well, with the Simmons injury, that buys him another year, so to speak, if they think he's on the hot seat. I still want to see, and Brett knows it. He said, he understands that people question what he can do because, quite simply, he hasn't had the chance to do it yet with NBA talent. So, I don't know if he's on a hot seat, but I think people are really interested to see what he can do with some of the talent that he has.
Yeah, I wonder, do you like what he runs? Do you like what they look like? I mean, in the preseason, I know it was very difficult because he's got minute restrictions. He's got guys who are young. He's got injured guys, so he never could get in the flow. But over the years, people, I think they're starting to say, okay, do you like what he runs? I mean, does he run stuff that you like?
Yeah, I haven't. No. Quite frankly, no. And it's all vanilla stuff that he's had to run because, when he wants to do A, B, and C, he doesn't have good enough players to go from A to B, let alone A to C. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of times in pro basketball, you improvise, and if A doesn't work, you have to have the ability and read each other to know that you have to change things. Well, there hasn't been an improvising player on this roster for 3 years, not one. Ben Simmons was that. He was a guy where you didn't have to go, chart out a play. 6 times out of 10 in live ball, he's going to create something and make it happen. And you can run variations off of that, but he just hasn't had the talent. And I hear you. I watched the Boston Celtics. They seem like they could throw any 5 guys out there that have been with Brad Stevens for 5 days, and at least they're running some sort of set that gets them, decent shots. I have not seen that with Brett, and I think some of it's because he hasn't implemented a lot of stuff because he doesn't think he has the talent to do so.
Okay, I mean, and one thing, Ben, it's the same. It's opening night, and here we are, 15 minutes into a conversation, and now we're just getting to him. I mean, how deflating is it that Ben Simmons not ready to play tonight?
Yeah,
or not ready to play maybe the entire 2016 rest of this calendar year?
Yeah, 2 things on that. Think of it. I'm writing this for tomorrow. I think if Simmons was in the lineup tonight, you're talking about an Oklahoma City team coming in, having lost Kevin Durant, trying to find its identity in maybe like not a negative way, but you've lost one of the best players in the league going against a Sixers team that trying to find its identity with such a positive feature of Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Jahlil Okafor, Nerlens Noel, all that stuff, and my how it's changed, and it's just crazy. And the other part with Ben Simmons, and I've written this a few times, and it hasn't seemed to caught fire all that much, and maybe I'm way off base, but I've tried to get confirmation from the Sixers. What exactly happened in that surgery? We know he had a Jones fracture. Normal procedure is to put a screw on the bone, and then recovery time is, the 8 to 10 weeks or whatever it may be, or 6 to 8 weeks, and then come back after that. I've asked them. I said, okay, did the screw get put in? They will not. They won't verify to me that the screw was put in. I called a couple of doctors. I said, why wouldn't they say it? So, well, it could have been a case they went in there and it was worse than they thought, where they had to put in a plate and multiple screws. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened, but they know that I have presented this to them, and they won't tell me that it was a normal Jones fracture surgery. If they had to do plate and screws, you're talking about probably, from what doctors have told me, another month of recovery as opposed to that 8 weeks. And now you're up to like 12, maybe 14. So, I just don't understand it. If they went in and did the normal surgery and everything's okay, that's good, and that's what we're all hoping. Me too. I hope the kid is back as soon as possible. It just concerns me that they just won't come out and say, yeah, he had the normal surgery where a screw was implanted.
No, I did hear this morning, right? Scott O'Neal basically confirming he believes Simmons will be back this year.
Yeah.
Right?
Which, like I said, I hope it is, and very well it could have been the normal surgery. I just don't understand why they haven't told us that that's exactly what happened.
All right, Bob Cooney, fearless Sixers predictions, real fast. Your fearless Embiid prediction this year.
I had it in the paper today, and hell of all the stories I've written, I wish I could remember. But I think I said somewhere like 18 points, over 10 rebounds, I think, and I think I said like 58 games, somewhere around there, Mike.
So that's a positive. All right, fearless prediction. Who gets traded first?
Shoot. If you're talking a big trade, I'm going to go Noel.
All right. Overall,
if they let go of a Hollis Thompson, I don't consider that a big trade.
Nah, probably not. All right, fearless.
Don't mess with those Thompsons.
The ceiling for victories this year is.
I have him at 22.
22. Well, 12 better than last year. Bob Cooney from the Philadelphia Daily Dudes. He'll be there tonight. That game is on national television, by the way, and you can hear the game on 97.3 ESPN. Bobby, take care, pal.
Guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.